What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And we have ourselves a jam-packed show for you all, as we have quite a bit to recap, such as the Long Beach State Tournament. Which team came out on top between UCLA and Groegia Tech? Yes, spoiler, Long Beach State and Portland State unfortunately couldn't hang with those two. And then how about some more upsets? We have Tennessee pulling off the big upset against number 9 Baylor. Absolutely amazing. Were they able to get 2 upsets against number 7 Pitt? And how about Creighton, the Blue Jays from the Big East, knocking off the reigning NCAA champion Kentucky? How did they do it, and what just went right for them? Also, we have many other upsets to recap, and we also have Stanford women's volleyball. Are they back? They knocked off number 5 Florida last Tuesday. I think this could be something special for them. We'll have to find out. And then we also have the Chicago Open of the AVP. Who won? Who's impressed? Grab me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve you some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon. I really appreciate y'all, as we actually have one person already in the chat room. It's my boy Marcus Losgray, who says his standard catchphrase, "What up, what up, what up, doe?" And he says, "Super Mondays, let's get it." I like that. I like that whole little thing. Super Mondays. I can dig it. So thank you, Marcus, for popping in the chat room. I appreciate you tuning in, and I appreciate everyone else tuning in on this Monday afternoon, September 6th, 2021, as this is episode 106 of Set Point. And for those that are wondering why I have second capitalized, it's because you'll see why. You'll see why. I'm not really supposed to tell, because that basically ruins the pun. So without any further delay, let's get on into that. Let's get on into this volleyball action that just happened last week. But first of all, we have a word from our sponsors. So our first sponsor is the Southern California Warriors. After a bye week in Week 4, the Warriors are set to host the Inland Empire Kings this Saturday. And it's going to be at Fallbrook High School. It's also going to be military night, because it's basically honoring all the military, and September 11th was the thing. And I believe the start time is at 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern. And then the whole military honoring, it will start at 5:45. I don't know if there will be a live stream, but if there is, cool. But if not, c'est la vie. Go Warriors, by the way. As this whole Inland Empire Kings versus SoCal Warriors thing is going to be quite the little matinee matchup. Anyway, the world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow the SoCal Warriors on Twitter at SoCal Warriors. You can also follow them on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors. You can also follow them on Facebook by typing in the word Southern, then California, then Warriors. And definitely do check them out if you are in the area. They have a solid team. They have a pretty good team. And Larry B does his thing. And it's looking like I'll be able to catch the SoCal Warriors this Saturday. Why? Because I'm going to PA announce again. And I can't wait for it. So that is sponsor numero uno for iSports Radio. sponsor numero dos is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help you make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not the use of any crimes such as identity theft or such illegal activity. You can follow Background Check International Businesses on Facebook by typing in the word background, then check, then international, then put dash, and then put BCI, and then you could also follow them on their website, www.bcient.com. Once again, that's www.bcient.com. So thank you to those two sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, and you can follow IE Sports Radio on Twitter and on Instagram at IE Sports Radio, and on Facebook by typing in IE, then the word sports, and then radio. And then definitely check out the website, www.iesportsradio.com. We have lots of merchandise, and we have a blog site there, so there's that right there. So now, without any further delay, let's get into the volleyball action. And you know what? Let's start off with something unique. We're actually not going to get into the recaps of everything. We're actually going to start off with Story Time with Teran. So prepare yourselves for Story Time with Teran. So this happened on Saturday, and I was very excited to make my return to Long Beach State to cover the Groegia Tech versus UCLA women's volleyball match. Now, I actually didn't get there as early as I wanted to. Why? Because I had work prior, and unfortunately work ran over by 50 minutes. I was supposed to get done at 12:30, and instead I got done at 1:20. So I wasn't as early as I thought I'd be, but luckily I was able to get in with no problem. I had to take a lot of equipment with me just because I was coming from work. Alright, so enough about my little whining and moaning. I actually got to see UCLA and Groegia Tech. I got to see Mike Seeley again, and I greeted him, and he kind of remembers me, but he kind of doesn't. I wouldn't be surprised if he fully remembered me, because it's been 2 years since I last saw him, but I digress. Anyway, so as for the matchup between Groegia Tech and UCLA, it was a fun little matchup. So the first set was completely all UCLA. They straight up dominated. They never trailed, and they just steamrolled their way past Groegia Tech in set one by a score of 25-11. I was very surprised that Groegia Tech had such a bad time with UCLA. I wouldn't say bad, but starting out, they only hit 59, while UCLA hit over 500, and that speaks to high volumes of how talented UCLA is. And Groegia Tech just has a lot of work to do, and they're going to need to just work a little bit harder if they want to have success in the ACC. So the second set was a little less one-sided. Like, UCLA obviously was their dominant self, as they were just doing everything correctly. They were excelling in offense, defense, serving, passing, serve-receive, etc. Everything just worked out well. Give credit to Groegia Tech, they really kept on the coattails of UCLA. However, it just wasn't enough, as Groegia Tech just fell too far behind, and it was just the case of too little too late, as UCLA took the second set 25-22. Now, set 3 was a little bit more dramatic, despite what the lead change says, as Groegia Tech never trailed, but it was tied 6 times, and give credit to UCLA, they made Groegia Tech work for that set. It wasn't a walk in the park, as Mariana Brambilla and Julia Bergman were both doing all they can to just will Groegia Tech back into the match. And it actually had to go into extra points, because it was just Mariana Brambilla and Mac May of UCLA just going back and forth. It was just one player getting the kill, then the other player getting the kill. Then one player getting the kill, then the other. And Mac May is an All-American, and I think Mariana Brambilla is a honorable mention All-American. But she's still a phenomenal player. In the end, of set 3, it was Georgia Tech taking that set as they won it off of a tip kill from Julia Bergman, who was another phenomenal player. She was the ACC Freshman of the Year back in 2019, and she was one of the big reasons why Georgia Tech won the NIVC, which is basically the equivalent of the NIT, as Georgia Tech took the third set 27-25, as we also say hello to Pierre Moss in the chat room. Thank you for popping in. He says, great way to start the work week. I appreciate you, Pierre. I'm glad you were able to pop in. And I'll be getting into Creighton in a little bit, because I know you're big on the Big East. But in set number 4, between UCLA and Georgia Tech, UCLA just steamrolled their way to victory. Surprisingly, Georgia Tech did take a brief lead, but it was just all UCLA. Like, they did everything correct. Their blocking was on point. They were digging every ball. They were pressurizing Georgia Tech into hitting the ball out and pressurizing Georgia Tech to making mistakes. It was that one-sided, as UCLA took the fourth set 25-11, which, ironically enough, it was the same set score as set number 1, as UCLA took the match 3-1. And I imagine the MVP of the tournament was Mac May. I didn't stay for the whole end of the tournament, but I imagine Mac May was the tournament MVP. But I did also see that Mariana Brambilla and I think Maddie McKissock, or actually no, I think it was Julia Bergman and Maddie McKissock made all tournament. As UCLA also defeated Long Beach State and Portland State, which obviously it wasn't too surprising. The Long Beach one was a little surprising just because Long Beach sometimes plays UCLA close, but UCLA is just too dominant. So that win really helped out UCLA, as I'll be talking about that in a little bit. But for right now, let's look over the stats. So UCLA was led by Mac May. Actually, no, they were led by Charity Looper, their freshman, who had 17 kills, and she hit .295, and she also chipped in 8 digs. Mac May had 16 kills and a hitting percentage of .293, and she had 11 digs. So UCLA, obviously UCLA can have Mac May just take over matches, but when she gets help from players like Looper, and then also Anna Dodson came in clutch in the fourth set. She had 4 kills in that fourth set and 7 kills overall. It just makes UCLA a much more dangerous team, as Anna Dodson had 7 kills, and then also they got Francesca Alupe and Shelby Martin with 5 kills. And speaking of Shelby Martin is a transfer from Kansas State. She's a graduate student, and she's going to play her last year at UCLA. She had 39 assists, and she also had 12 digs. I actually caught up with an interview with one of the UCLA players after the match, which I'll be getting into in a little bit. So that was the assist department. In terms of service aces and service errors, UCLA had 6 aces, but they missed 10 serves, but that's alright. They love to serve tough. Zoe Fleck had 30 digs, which was quite nice, and she also chipped in 8 assists. So for her, she is a second-year player on UCLA as she transferred from UC Santa Barbara, and she is adapting well to that libero position. In terms of blocks, UCLA had 11 blocks as a team, and as a team, UCLA hit .289, and that just speaks to high volumes of how good the Bruins are, and I think people are kind of selling them short. I think they're much better than most people give them credit for. This was their big first test, and they passed with flying colors, whereas Georgia Tech had been challenged early in the season as they got a battle from UCF, Penn State, and St. John's, all of which they won in 4 sets against Penn State, 4 sets against UCF, and 3 sets against St. John's. Speaking of Georgia Tech, they were led by Mariana Brambilla, who had 17 kills. Julia Bergman had 13 kills. As a team, Georgia Tech only hit 110, which was very disappointing on their part. Their best set when it came to hitting percentages was set 3, where they hit .283. But every other hitting percentage was not good. The first set, like I said, they hit only 59, and then in set 2 they hit only 129, and then set 4 the wheels pretty much came off because they hit -88. So Just goes to show you that UCLA was blocking the ball well, and they were just pressurizing Georgia Tech to making mistakes. I still think Georgia Tech is a phenomenal team, but they still have a little work to do if they want to have success in the ACC. Georgia Tech also ran their 6-2 offense as Isabella D'Amico and Maddie McKissock each had 21 and 16 assists respectively. Georgia Tech only had 3 service aces while they missed 8 serves. In terms of digs, they had 12 digs apiece from Bergman and Brambilla, and they also had 8 digs from Paola Pimentel. Yeah, trying to pronounce her name correct. Paola Pimentel. There we go. Pimentel. And then they had 6 blocks as a team. So, all in all, I think this was a great little matchup between 2 ranked teams early on in the season. Both are from Power 5 conferences. Like I said, I did catch up with UCLA players and their head coach, Mike Sealy. I apologize if there's any noise in the background when I had these interviews. So, here are these interviews as we speak. All right, Coach Sealy, your team is coming off of an impressive 4-set victory over Georgia Tech. What were the keys to taking down the Yellow Jackets?
Following game plan. The assistant coaches put in a great game plan and just following assignments and just being patient when we needed to.
And obviously it wasn't just the Mac May show. You got help from Charity and a few others offensively. What can you say about your team's offensive balance?
Yeah, I thought Shelby Martin did a good job of finding everybody. I think when we got tight, we got a little bit safe and we stopped running offense. But by the 4th set, I thought we did a good job of incorporating all the hitters again.
And obviously Georgia Tech has a lot of good hitters like Julia Bergman and Mariana Brambilla. What was the game plan trying to slow them down? Or was there no game plan?
Serve tough. Make sure that, we know that they like to run a lot of back row attacks and just putting our blockers in the right place. But I think our blockers are physical enough to get touches, so we were okay with that.
And then set 3 obviously kind of got away from you, but that didn't deter you from winning set 4. Like, what did you tell the team when you lost that 3rd set going into set 4?
Anytime you lose a tight set, you can't be disappointed. You can't bring disappointment into the 4th set. You got to be willing to play for 4 more hours if you have to.
You're 4-0 going into next week. Do you think your team is where you need it to be?
No, tonight wasn't our reality. Tonight showed us our potential. We got to keep working hard and aspire to be able to do this as often as possible. And it's not going to be that way every night, but we have to aspire towards it.
And then what can you say about Georgia Tech and how they were resilient in forcing a 4th set?
That's an unbelievable team. They've had great wins all season. I was really nervous going in because they're just so disciplined and they're so functional in everything they do.
Now, I know Pac-12 play isn't for a while, but what's it going to take to have a successful Pac-12 play and a deep playoff run?
Yeah, it's too far away. There's too many good Pac-12 teams, so we're going to focus on this week and leave it at that.
All right, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay, that last question I should not have asked. I'm just going to say that right there. When it comes to Mike Sealy, don't ask, and before Pac-12 play, don't ask him about Pac-12 questions. That's just a little helpful hint for you all. I should have known this a couple of years ago, just because I kind of asked him a question regarding the Pac-12. Like, for you reporters out there, never ask Mike Sealy about Pac-12 play when Pac-12 plays like 1 or 2 weeks away. So that was my interview with Mike Sealy. Now here's my interview with Mac May of UCLA. All right, so your team is coming off of an impressive 4-set victory over Georgia Tech. What were the ways you were able to exploit Georgia Tech's weaknesses?
I think Georgia Tech is a very well-oiled machine, honestly. So we came into this match knowing that they were going to be a crisp, just team overall, crisp offense, and just overall very good volleyball. And so I think that helped us get our mindset right, and then we just ran it right back at them. So their fast offense, we combated with our fast offense, and I think we did a good job on our defense for sure, blocking their strong hitters.
And obviously this was the biggest test going into your first 4 games. What was like the mindset going into this game, and what did you need to do in order to not get overwhelmed in the moment?
Our team focuses a lot on next play mentality, so after every single play, that one's done, we focus on the next. We also focused on playing free and not tight and making sure that we were just making plays all over the place. No matter what was going on, get the ball up, slow it down, get a swing.
Charity also helped take some of the offensive pressure off of you. What can you say about Charity and her big night tonight?
Charity did unreal. I'm so happy she's on this team and doing as well as she is as a freshman, because sometimes it can take a little bit, but she's hopped in and it's seamless, absolutely seamless. So very impressive.
And then Shelby has been distributing the ball quite nicely for your team.
Yes.
What's it like having her on your team?
She's very experienced, which is amazing. Knows what's going on the court and is able to put the ball where it needs to be. I think she does a really good job also helping with the leadership with her age and experience, and so we've got all the tools and it's working out nicely so far.
Excellent. All right, so obviously... Okay, so that was my interview with Mac May. She is a super senior or a fifth-year player or a graduate student. That's the word, graduate student. And I'm looking forward to seeing what she could do. I would not be surprised if she got Pac-12 Player of the Year. She was named Pac-12 Player of the Year last year, and I imagine she got MVP of this tournament. So now I caught up with Charity Looper of UCLA after the match, and I spoke to her on the win over Groegia Tech. Obviously, you had a big win tonight over Groegia Tech. What was the gameplay or downplay what happened tonight in this big victory?
Honestly, I think we just stayed calm as a team and played together through whatever had happened tonight. Everybody did their job tonight. It was a hell of a game. Everybody did their job, and I'm just so proud of this team, and I'm happy that I chose this school.
Obviously, Groegia Tech has some big-time players like Julia Bergman and Mariana Brambilla. What were ways you were able to slow those two down and make sure they don't have big nights?
I feel like we similar in a lot of things. They're a hitter, I'm a hitter, and when we were watching film, I was like, all right, I do that stuff too. So it was easy to communicate with the defense, telling them what to expect from them, because as a hitter, I do the same thing.
You're 4-0 going into next week. What's that feeling like, and do you think the team is peaking at the right time?
Oh, we're definitely peaking at the right time. This is our year. This is our team. Next week, we're just going to go in. We're just going to take it one game at a time. This game, we won, yeah, but it's over, so we're on to the next.
And then obviously got other contributions from Zoe Flack and Shelby Martin and Mac May. What can you say about your whole team's dynamic and how they're there for one another?
Gosh, this team, they're older, so they've been through this a lot of times, and they know what to expect, and they really helped me through it a lot since I'm still young. But we have a lot of top older athletes who just know the game.
All right, thanks, Charity.
Thank you.
All right, so Charity said something I was quite surprised. This is our year. Now, I am all for confidence, and I actually believe UCLA can challenge Washington in the Pac-12. But as Mike Sealy said, it is still too early because there are a lot of good Pac-12 teams. You have Washington that's still doing pretty solid. They had a good 2-0 weekend in the Pac-12 Big Ten crossover. You have Stanford, which pulled off an upset. You have Washington State that's kind of struggling but still trying to find some ground. They face some stiff competition. And then you also have you have Oregon that's definitely doing well. They're still undefeated for the time being. They got a big test this weekend in the Pac-12 Big Ten crossover at their place. So I actually caught up with the Groegia Tech coach, Michelle Collier, on what did not go right and what positives her team can take away from this loss. All right, so today was a little... Oh, by the way, I did interview her when Long Beach State and Portland State was going on, so I apologize if you hear any background noise and music and cheering and other things, but again, I kind of caught them during the Long Beach State-Portland State match. Because, again, this isn't like the NFL where you can just interview everybody after the game. So, yeah, here's my interview with Michelle Collier. And it's Michelle because she's Portuguese or Brazilian. I digress. A little bit of a tough one against UCLA. What do you think could have gone a little bit better in this match?
I thought UCLA played a great match, so they earned it. But I definitely think we played below our capacity. I think that our serving was something that was just they were in system the whole time. Served the libero a lot, so I think that our serving was something that let us down a little bit. I think that was the main thing. I just felt like we were really UCLA just really. We couldn't find a way to stop their outsides. They really just got good momentum and played a great match from the service line. I felt like they attacked us really well from the service line, and we didn't do the same thing on the other side. So,
despite the loss, what positives can you take away from this match going into next week and into the future?
All the things we still need to work on. I think that you can always learn from a loss like this. Obviously. It would feel much better if you lost and you were still playing at a level that you can play. So we just got to find our consistency, get back to the gym, work on the things that we didn't execute well this weekend, and that they were able to take it away and just keep getting better. So.
Obviously, the two-headed monster, Julia and Mariana, had a big night, but who else stood out to you, in your opinion?
We wanted to get our middles involved a little more. I didn't feel like we were able to do that. I think Bianca on the outside helped her a little bit. She carries a heavy load too. She had a good match last night. But I think Mari and Julia have been inconsistent go-to, and we need to get other players to step up and contribute as well. But it starts with our passing, and then our distribution, and then the execution from those players when they do get set. So I think it was a big combination of that today, and we just... very proud of Mari and Julia, how they've been playing, but we got to keep finding ways to be a little more balanced.
So, obviously, ACC play doesn't start for a couple more weeks, but what can you say about the parity in the ACC as of right now?
Yeah, well, I think our conference is going to be very tight. Pittsburgh, Louisville, Florida State, North Carolina is having a great preseason. I do think that a lot of the other teams are getting better and better. Virginia Tech, everybody. So it's going to be a dogfight, I think. I think that we're performing well at a national level. So that always makes it funner in conference to get after it. And, we just got to keep getting better. So I'm really proud of the ACC and what we're doing as a conference. And we've been really growing over the past few years. And I think this is probably going to be one of the best years for our conference out there.
And then, despite not coming away 2-0, what did you like about visiting California, and what were some highlights in California?
Yeah, no, it's always fun to, be able to, come to the side of the country where we don't get a chance to do very often. Some great volleyball is played over here. A lot of volleyball greats have know the sport, so we understand the fans and just the environment. Everybody really enjoys the game. And able to play great teams like UCLA, Long Beach. I mean, they have a different style of play than we see, out on the East Coast sometimes. And it's just good to expose ourselves. I think the time difference, those are all different challenges that we have to adjust, that we really don't get a chance to expose ourselves as much. So really putting ourselves in an uncomfortable scenario here, getting outside our comfort zone a little bit and really being able to play some great teams. So I think that it was fun. We had a great time here, and we're going to keep coming back and looking for the best competition. So I was glad we were able to come out this way.
All right, thanks, Coach.
No problem.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that was my interview with Michelle Collier. Great coach, and she did make some good points. She said that the serving was not good, and she said that the serving let her down and let the team down, and I totally agree. I thought Georgia Tech could have served a lot tougher, but again, this was another big test. I kind of also think that losing a set to Long Beach kind of mattered. I think when I saw that that Georgia Tech lost a set to Long Beach State, albeit it was a tight set 33-31 on Friday, I thought that kind of was a red flag of how Georgia Tech, I don't think, was ready for UCLA, just because UCLA has a lot of great talent, and like I said, Mac May and Charity Looper were just two of the highlights. Shelby Martin also got a few kills, and she's only the setter, so I think Shelby Martin and the entire UCLA offense, as well as Zoe Fleck, has just been on point. So I actually caught up with Julia Bergman of Georgia Tech to talk about the match against UCLA.
All right, it looks so. All right, Julia, I just gotta say you are a tolerant person, if you ask me. Anyway, so tonight obviously was a tough one, but you had some positives. What were some positives you had in tonight's match against UCLA?
I mean, it's an opportunity for us to learn on what we have to do better, and I think this game just showed us what we have to work on in practice and what to work on before the next game.
Now, what was the game? Do you know what the game plan was to trying to slow down Mac May, who is one of the better outsides in the nation?
I mean, she's a very good player. I think she played very well this game, but we watched film before. We knew what we had to do, but I think we didn't execute on her the way we had to.
Obviously, losing your first match is tough, but what are there any silver linings to this loss going into next week and in the future?
I mean, like I said, we just have to treat it as an opportunity for us to learn and to see what we have to work on.
And obviously the ACC is starting to improve with all the other teams like Louisville, Pitt, even North Carolina and Duke are kind of up there. What can you say about the ACC and how they've improved?
I think it's fun to be in such a competitive environment and just playing against those teams. I think it's going to be a tough in-conference matches too, but we're focused now on our last preseason matches, and I think, it's really cool to see the ACC growing so much in volleyball.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so she mentioned the part about the ACC. Well, I kind of asked her about the ACC, and I think the ACC is definitely going to be a tough outing for not only Georgia Tech, but for some of the other teams. And that's going to be that's going to narrow down who are the contenders and the pretenders. Because look at the ACC, you have quite a bit of undefeated teams like Wake Forest, Duke, North Carolina. I want to say Virginia might be one undefeated team left in the ACC. Miami's still undefeated. Pitt is obviously still undefeated. The list goes on. And then you have some other teams that are kind of struggling a bit, like Notre Dame. They're kind of the surprise team of the ACC. They're struggling as of late. And sorry, Pierre, I got to bring this up. Notre Dame went 0-3 last weekend, and I think they're still the most underrated team of the conference. I think they're just struggling as of right now. They're still young and youthful, and they're trying to figure out which players go where and which players are just going to dominate and how they're going to try to turn the ship around, because they obviously can't continue to play badly in ACC play. They have too much talent to be playing like crap. I'm not trying to say that in a negative way, but I'm also trying to say this in a way of, if Notre Dame wants to make the NCAA tournament and have success, they're going to need to play a bit higher on their opponent's level, because they did have some losses that kind of raise a few eyebrows, and they did drop out. They aren't receiving any votes when it comes to the top 25. So once ACC play hits, we'll find out who are the real contenders and who are the real pretenders. So I actually caught up with Mariana Brambilla up on the matchup against UCLA and what it's going to take to get some more wins going forward.
All right, you're up. All right, so obviously today was a tough loss for you all, but there were some good moments, including that third set. What were some positives in your mind that you could take away from this match?
I would say one positive thing is that third set that we could find and figure out and be aggressive, but I think we should have done it consistently at the other sets. So.
And obviously, this was another big test for you all, as last week you took down Penn State and a few other good teams, and you took down a good Long Beach team. What can you say about UCLA and how they differed from your first four opponents?
Well, they literally played a really good game. They were very efficient at their swing. I think their strategy was working really well, but I also think that we didn't perform at the level that we could. So I think obviously they played really well, but a lot of was on our side. So I think we have to like use it as a learning experience and see what we didn't do good, which is like a lot of things. So yeah.
And then, what were some things you liked in California when you visited out here? What were some highlights?
I would say like the city is like really pretty, and the beach is also.
Okay, now back to volleyball. Obviously, you're 4-1 going into next week. What are going to be the keys to like improving and getting your season back to the W column?
I think for sure our serves. I feel like on this whole championship we were not very confident in our serves, and it's like a huge part of the game because we have a strategy on that, and we know what we have to do after the serve, and we were missing like a lot.
And who else do you think stood out today other than you and Julia?
I think I think everybody like did what they could the best. So I think like Paola and the middles, also like Kali that came in, and she's a freshman, Bianca. I think like it's always like a team thing, so I think it's like everybody. Like if one can do something, like if I can hit, it's because someone is passing, because someone is setting. So.
And obviously you were just energized with getting kill after kill. Like, what is your secret to being such a dynamic offensive player and how you're so fired up and getting the team pumped up?
I think it's just like the passion for the game. I just wanted to win so bad, and I just wanted like to do my best and like give everything that I could for my team. Like just live it out at the court. So yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, and that was pretty much my interviews with Groegia Tech and UCLA. All in all, I appreciate their SID for having them take time out of their tough little loss and have them like talk to me. And thank you, Larry B. He says, awesome interview. I appreciate it. And yeah, I got interviews with the UCLA players and the UCLA coach, as well as the Groegia Tech head coach and the other Groegia Tech players. As I thought I could have done a little bit better, but maybe I'm just being a little too modest with myself. So, all in all, it was a fun little outing at Long Beach State, and there will be more matches when it comes to covering them in the near future, because I plan to be at more Long Beach State matches, and hopefully, and there may be another little match that I may cover in the near future, but I won't do it as the media, because I don't think I have the credential or the importance to cover it when it comes to these two schools, but that's for another day. So, anyway, before we continue on with the other upsets, I actually do need to make note of one match that happened this past week, and that was Texas A&M and Cal Poly. So, you're kind of wondering what is so special about Texas A&M and Cal Poly. Well, Cal Poly going into this match, this happened on last Wednesday, and Cal Poly had the longest active home winning streak going into that match. They had a 32-game home winning streak, and it dated all the way back to 2016. I think it was in October of 2016. Regardless, they put that winning streak on the line against Texas A&M, as Cal Poly took the opening set 25-19. And then in the second set, there was just a lot of tough gameplay between both teams. Like, Texas A&M, before I continue, Texas A&M is a very good team. Well, they're kind of good. I won't say they're bad, but they were coming off of a 1-2 outing in the Hawaii tournament, where they lost to Marquette in 5, and then they lost to Hawaii in 3. But Texas A&M rebounded in that second set, winning it 29-27. There was just back-and-forth gameplay in the latter part of the sets. There was just Texas A&M got a point, and then Cal Poly got a point, then A&M got a point, then Cal Poly. It's like this, and then that, and then you like that, and then hee. I'm just referencing too much Last Dance action. Anyway, in set 3, it was kind of the same, except Cal Poly did not want to go to 29-27. Instead, they won at 26-24, as they took the 2-1 lead ahead of Texas A&M. Well, in set number 4, TAMU took the fourth set 25-20, as as they evened the match up 2 sets apiece as they went into the 5th set, looking to try to snap the 32-game winning streak. And indeed they did so, because Texas A&M got great contributions from Meredith Phillips, Tommy Stockham, and Texas A&M got great contributions from Lauren Davis, Morgan Charleston, and Triana Rush, as Texas A&M won the 5th set 15-11, and they snapped the 32-game winning streak, which dated all the way back to 2016. So that was a great win for Texas A&M. Like last year, Texas A&M had a disappointing season. They had a lot of high expectations, and then they just belly flopped. But for them, I think they really played a complete game of volleyball. And who knows, maybe they could sneak their way into the SEC, into the SEC top standings of the conference. But it's still early, as, like I said, Texas A&M was led by Lauren Davis, who had 19 kills, Morgan Kristen had 18 kills, and Triana Rush had 10 kills. Camille Connor had 37 assists and 3 kills of her own, while Texas A&M had 5 service aces, but they missed 20 serves, which I couldn't believe that they missed that many serves. And then in terms of digs, they had 19 digs from Macy Carabine, 11 digs apiece from Cameron Ennis and Camille Connor, and then they also had 8 digs from Morgan Kristen. As a team, Texas A&M had 14 blocks compared to Cal Poly's 12, and Texas A&M hit 237, which is pretty decent. I think that's the Texas A&M that most people have been waiting for. As for Cal Poly, they were led by Meredith Phillips, who had 14 kills, Tommy Stockham had 12 kills, and Jamie Stivers had 11 kills. In terms of assists, Avalon Denicochia had 37 assists, and she chipped in 3 kills. Surprisingly, Cal Poly had 10 service aces, but they missed 12 serves. I'm surprised with that good of a serving ratio. They lost, but it is what it is. I can't complain for Texas A&M. In terms of digs, they had 61 digs as a team. 19 of them went to Peyton Dueck, and then Stivers had 14, and then Leah Ungar had 10 digs. And as a team, Cal Poly hit an abysmal 135, which is not good. Like, if Cal Poly wants to win the Big West Conference and they want to have success, they're going to need to have a lot better hitting percentage than that. But their winning streak at home has been broken, and Texas A&M is a hero. It depends on how you look at Texas A&M, of course. So now we get to jump to the recap of all the noteworthy matches. So on Tuesday, we had then number 21 Stanford upsetting number 5 Florida in 4 sets, which was absolutely amazing. It was bonkers. Stanford took the 2-0 lead after the first 2 sets. Then Florida came back and won the 3rd set. But then Stanford closed the door on them in the 4th set, which I had a feeling Stanford was going to win that match. I had a feeling Stanford was going to pull off some sort of big win, and they did so. They have a young team, but that young team does have a lot of experience from last year. So I think it's safe to say Stanford might be back. But as Mike Seeley said, there's a lot of early gameplay in the NCAA world, and also Pac-12 play is too early to project. Then on Wednesday, we had number 1 Texas taking down number 10 Minnesota in 4 sets. Just like the Stanford-Florida match, Texas took the first 2 sets, and then Minnesota won the 3rd set, and then Texas won the 4th set. In the first set, Texas actually had to rally back in order to beat Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota's been playing stiff competition, but for Minnesota, if they're going to want to have success in the Big Ten, they got to start beating the ranked opponents, because when it comes to the Big Ten, it's only going to get tougher. Even Michigan, teams like Michigan and Michigan State and some of the other lower-ranked teams like Illinois, or unranked teams for that matter, could give them a tough time. So Minnesota's got to get their you-know-what together, otherwise the Big Ten is going to eat them alive. Then on Thursday, we had Wisconsin sweeping Dayton, which was no surprise. Oregon beat Rice in 4, which I was that seemed about right. I didn't think Oregon was going to sweep Rice, but Oregon is a really good team. They are going to get tested this week in the Big Ten Pac-12 crossover, so we'll have to see. UCLA swept Long Beach State, which was no surprise, and then South Carolina swept UCF, which also wasn't a surprise. And then on Friday, we had Wisconsin defeating Dayton again, Purdue sweeping Washington State. And this one was the big upset. And I think this could be accounted for one of the big upsets of the weekend. We had Tennessee, yes, the Lady Vols, taking down number 9 Baylor in 5 sets. It was a great matchup. And I have been harping that Tennessee is a good team. They returned most of their players. They have great transfers in Brianna Runnels and Nicole Shanahan. Like, I don't see why people are not giving any love to Tennessee. So, what do you do in NCAA? So, great job to Tennessee for pulling off the 5-set upset on its home floor against Baylor. Then we had Utah sweeping Cal Poly. Then Utah beating San Diego in 4 sets. Then San Diego defeating Hawaii in 3 sets. I kind of said that this was going to be like a little bit of a grudge match. I know the NCAA tournament happened last year, and that didn't also feature Hawaii and San Diego. But this happened 2 years ago when Hawaii ended the season of San Diego, and I think most of those players on San Diego remember Hawaii, and I want to say that that loss was still fresh in their minds. Like, I don't know if that was true in terms of their coach and their coaching staff, but if I were a returning player on San Diego, I would not forget that. And props to Jennifer Petrie for getting her team prepared against that Hawaii team. That could have been an easy trap game, considering they had Hawaii, then Utah on Friday. So, big ups to San Diego. Then, in the UC Santa Barbara tournament, or little round-robin thing, we had Pepperdine sweeping K-State. I'm surprised Pepperdine did not have too much problems with Kansas State. In the remainder of their tournament games at Santa Barbara, Pepperdine defeated San Diego State in 4, and then they defeated UC Santa Barbara in 5. I was surprised that the Waves had a little bit more problems with the Aztecs and the Gauchos. The Gauchos, I'm also going to say this, they have been snake-bitten when it comes to 5-set matches. They have lost 4 matches that have gone the distance. So, for Santa Barbara, which was chosen 3rd to finish in the Big West Conference, if they want to be successful, they're going to have to win these 5-set matches, because I can assure you they'll probably be going 5 against some of the other teams of the Big West, like Hawaii, maybe Long Beach State, maybe even UC Davis. And heck, even the lower teams could have a chance to knock them off, so we'll have to see. And then we had Georgia Tech defeating Long Beach State in 4. Like I said, the 3rd set, I think, was a red flag for Georgia Tech, because I think that since Georgia Tech was unable to finish off Long Beach State, I think they were not ready for UCLA. And their serving wasn't as good as it was. Well, their serving against UCLA was not as good as it was against Long Beach State. And that's a whole different beast. And whatnot. So, I give props to Long Beach State for taking a set off of Georgia Tech as well. Obviously, they're still a little young, and they had to play 3 matches in 3 nights. So, I imagine they'll get a nice little... Well, they had a nice little rest on Sunday, and then they're back at it because they have the Washington State tournament. So, there's that. And then, this was the big upset. Creighton... we're still on Friday. So, we're still on Friday, and Creighton narrowly beat USC in 5 sets. Creighton took the first 2 sets, and then USC took the next 2 sets, and it looked as if USC was going to win the match in 5. I was thinking they're going to pull off the reverse sweep. They actually led 13-10. Like, the 5th set was back and forth, and then UCLA started to distance themselves from Creighton. They were up 13-10, like I said, and I'm thinking, well, this is the big victory that USC needed, because they're going into a big showdown against number 3 Kentucky tomorrow, and they got to win this. Unfortunately for USC, they did not put Creighton away, as Creighton scored the last 5 points to win the match in 5 sets, and that was a big punch to the gut for USC. And USC has kind of been a little on the struggle bus as of late. I mean, they're not like struggling. They're still 3-3, but they're struggling against stiff competition. Like the Denver, if there's one thing that I've learned from USC is that the Denver loss has kind of exposed USC as they're still struggling against like stiff competition. Creighton is stiff competition, and as you'll see with Kentucky and USC, they'll be considered stiff competition. As we say hello to Gina G, who popped in the chat room, she said, sorry, she's late. Her schedule got unexpectedly messed up, and she hopes I'm having a great show. Thank you, Gina. So Saturday's matches included USC losing, or Kentucky defeating USC in straight sets, which that wasn't anywhere near of a surprise. But the big surprise in Kentucky was Creighton sweeping Kentucky. This was a huge win for Creighton. Not only did they sweep the reigning NCAA champion, they swept the reigning NCAA champion on its home floor. That is impressive stuff, and Creighton deserves all the praise in the world. I'm very happy for Creighton, and they don't get a whole lot of love because they are in the Big East Conference and they're not Power 5, and they're playing a lot of stiff competition. Like, the competition is starting to step up for them. Like, last week they only beat St. Louis, Missouri, and Kansas City. This week they beat Northern Illinois, which no one really cares about. I'm just saying. And then they beat USC, which is always a great team, and then they beat Kentucky in straight sets. They just dominated Kentucky. Whew. And then we had number 7 Pitt outlasting number 9 Baylor. Pitt was actually down, I think they were down 11-7 in set number 5, but then they managed to turn the tides. Keep in mind, I wasn't paying attention to Baylor-Pitt and the updates because I was focusing more on UCLA and Groegia Tech, and it's tough for me to just look at two things at once, so I apologize if I don't have the exact numbers, but Pitt beating Baylor was absolutely impressive, and you'll see that Pitt's weekend was very spectacular as well. So, next up we had Ohio State beating Texas State in 4 sets. I thought this was going to be a noteworthy matchup just because Texas State is also another one of those underrated teams that doesn't get love because they're not in a Power 5 conference. For Texas State, they have been struggling, but they have been playing stiff competition like Kentucky. They also play Dayton, which is a good team. And then Ohio State, like I said, they're also a good team. So for Texas State, they are struggling a bit, but that's due to the fact that they're playing really good competition. And then we had Penn State sweeping LSU. I wasn't too surprised at this, but I'm also surprised at how LSU is just off to a rocky start. I know they've been dealing with Hurricane Ida, but I hope once Hurricane Ida is all and over with, they can get back to playing some good volleyball. I really still have high hopes on LSU. I don't think their hopes are as high as Tennessee's, which I'm about to talk about in a little bit, but we'll see what happens with LSU, because they do have Kylie DeBerg, who is an All-American, and she's a phenomenal beach volleyball player, so we'll have to see what happens with LSU going forward. And then Penn State's starting to get themselves together after they had a blunderous loss to Groegia Tech, so good for Penn State. And then Louisville defeated Louisville defeated South Dakota in straight sets. South Dakota was starting its season this week, so they're a little bit rusty, and Louisville is really, really, really good. But for South Dakota, we'll give them a little bit of a pass. I know they lost to Missouri, which is the epitome of abomination, considering Missouri is not good as they were in the past. But I think South Dakota is going to start to get it together once Summit League play starts. So there's that. And then I already talked about UCLA defeating Groegia Tech in 4. This was kind of an upset right here. UNLV defeated then number 29 Washington State in 4 sets. Now, UNLV hasn't really played stiff competition, but the fact that they defeated Washington State on their own home floor in Las Vegas was quite amazing. Washington State has been struggling, I will say that, but they've played a lot of stiff competition. They played number 9, well, they played Pitt, they played what's their face, South Carolina, and they also played Purdue, which also defeated Washington State. So Washington State is 0-4, but that's a very tough 0-4 to go out against. So I think Washington State will be fine once Pac-12 play starts, but this weekend when they have the Washington State tournament, they better bring it, because Long Beach State, I can already tell you, the beach is going to come ready to go, and they're not slowing down for anybody. Anyway, so Utah defeated Hawaii in 4 sets. Now, I knew Hawaii would give Utah a little bit of a challenge, but Utah is still as good as advertised. Hawaii is still trying to get the cobwebs out of their jerseys, and I think for them, as well as Cal Poly, I think they're going to need a little bit more time before Big West Conference play starts, because keep in mind, every Big West Conference team did not play last year, and it's still BS to this day. And then lastly, of last Saturday's matchups, in terms of recapping, we had San Diego sweeping Cal Poly. Again, just like I said with Hawaii, it's going to take Cal Poly a little while to defeat some stiffer competition. But I think they'll be fine once Big West Conference play starts. So, again, and Cal Poly is playing some stiff competition. Like, they played Utah, they played San Diego, they played A&M. This was a long week for Cal Poly, so I think they get a slight pass. But if they don't get it together once conference play starts, then I don't see how they'll be able to defend their NCAA, or not their NCAA crown, their Big West Conference, not their title, but their standing. Like, they were chosen to finish second in the Big West Conference, and they're not really showing it against the stiff competition that they're playing early on. So anyway, this past Sunday, this is the last day when it came to this last week, we had number 1 Texas defeating number 21 Stanford in straight sets. This kind of wasn't a surprise, except Stanford actually led in the first set, but then Texas took them down by turning the tables. I hate how Stanford didn't get to take a set off them, because it would have been great too. But I think Stanford is still learning. They still have that young team, and as you'll see in a little bit, they made a lot of great strides. Then we had number 5 Florida, taking down then number 10 Minnesota in 4 sets. The same thing happened with Minnesota like it did against Texas. Minnesota's opponent took the first 2 sets, and then Minnesota took the 3rd set, and then Minnesota lost the 4th set. The 4th set was very tight, as Minnesota was doing all it can to force a 5th set, but Florida, being the talented team that they are, managed to close the door on them by taking set 4 25-23. Very close set, but that's a very good Florida team right there. So, again, Minnesota's just going to have to work a little bit harder when it comes to their matchups against very talented opponents. They have a big test, like I said, they have a big test this week against Stanford and Oregon, and it's at Oregon, so I think Minnesota is going to be getting a taste of some more stiff competition, and they're going to need to be ready for it. And then the last matchup to recap from last week, we have number 7 Pitt outlasting Tennessee in 5 sets. Now, this was a very, very good matchup. I really think Tennessee is as good as advertised. It didn't show in their loss, but that 3rd set, they were with Pitt most of the way. They had 2 set points, but unfortunately, they lost them. And yes, Tennessee had 2 set points. They didn't have 1. I made the mistake of saying that they had 2, and I kind of got chewed out for it a little, but you live and learn. At the end of the day, Pitt is really good. They are as good as advertised, and I think Pitt is going to make the ACC a lot tougher for teams like Georgia Tech, Louisville, and many others. So that is going to do it for last week's noteworthy matches in terms of the recap. Let's jump on into the AVCA Top 25 Coaches Poll, and then we'll take a quick break. So 25 through 21 features San Diego at 25, South Carolina at 24, Tennessee, hey, Lady Vols, how you doing? Tennessee enters the top 25 at number 23, Pepperdine at 22, and then Georgia Tech at 21. 20 through 16 includes Utah at 20, Creighton, well, how you doing, Creighton? Creighton enters the top 25 at number 19, Penn State at 18, Baylor at 17, woof, they took a huge drop, and then UCLA at 16. Then 15 through 11 include Western Kentucky at 15, Stanford at 14, Minnesota at 13, BYU at 12, and Oregon at 11. 10 through 6 include Louisville at 10, Washington at 9, Kentucky, who was number 3 last week, falling to number 8, Florida at 7, that still feels pretty weird, and then Purdue at 6. And then 5 through 1 include Pitt and Ohio State, tied for number 4, Nebraska at number 3, Wisconsin at number 2, and then your number 1 team in the AVCA Coaches Poll is Texas, which is no surprise. So that is that for the AVCA Women's Volleyball Division I Coaches Poll. Let us take ourselves a quick little break. Then when we come back, we will have the preview for this week's noteworthy matchups, and then we'll also have a recap of the U.S. Women's sitting volleyball team winning gold in the 2020 Paralympics, and then we'll also have a recap of the last AVP event of the season. So you are listening to Set Point here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey guys, it's Blake Henley, better known as H-Town Blake to some of you. Happy to announce that Bases Loaded is back in full force. We'll be bringing that high heat every Tuesday night here on iSports Radio. So come home, get ready, dig into that batter's box, and see if you can chase that high heat, baby. So we'll be coming to you live with all the stats, all the rundowns, all the division rivalries, and every team that's going to make the playoff push to get to that one and only October and get to the pinnacle of what baseball is, to hoist that Commissioner's Trophy when it's all said and done.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And we are back. Back with Set Point here on iSports Radio. You can check out all of our amazing shows here on iSports Radio. We have sports dedicated to basketball, football, college basketball, baseball, combat sports. Shows that are dedicated to Northern California, Southern California, Arizona. The list goes on and on. So definitely do check out all of our amazing shows here on iSports Radio. We are just a bunch of podcasters who are looking to work on and perfect our craft. So definitely do check out our amazing shows. And then later on tonight, we have the premiere of a new show called Dry Heat Sports with Aaron. And I highly recommend tuning in for that because it is a phenomenal show, and it's the season premiere of Dry Heat Sports with Aaron Deacon. So definitely do check him out, or as many people call him, Aaron. Kind of like the whole Key and Peele, but I'm Key and Peele skit, but I'm spoiling everything. So now let's jump on into the next topic and segment number 2 of Set Point. So next topic we got to talk about is the AVP, and this was the final event of the AVP. And the Chicago Open did not disappoint, as on the men's side we had Casey Patterson defeating Casey Patterson and Chase Budinger defeating Triborn and Trevor Crabb in 2 sets, 21 to 18 and 21 to 14. Now, this was actually the finals matchup from last season, and Budinger and Patterson got revenge on Triborn and Trevor Crabb, as Budinger and Patterson also had to defeat Billy Allen and Andy Benish in the semifinals in 3 sets. Triborn and Trevor Crabb also defeated Paul Lotman and Miles Partain in 2 sets, as they take home second after winning first last season in the Chicago Open. But for the Chicago Open and for all of the AVP men's side of things, it was very unique. Like, I want to say there was a different winner every time. It wasn't just the same thing over and over again. I'm not trying to knock the pairs that win it over and over and over again, but it just has a lot of different variety. So, all in all, for the men's side of things, it was very unique. So, as for the women's side of things, to no one's surprise, April Ross and Alex Kleinman won the Chicago Open for the 3rd straight year as they defeated Larissa Maestrini and Liliane Maestrini in straight sets, 21-16 and 21-18. April Ross and Alex Kleinman won 2 out of 3 events. The only reason why they only won 2 out of 3 instead of 3 out of 3 was because the first event, which was in Atlanta, Georgia, they just got back from the Olympics and they decided not to partner up with one another. I think it was also because April Ross was recovering, and then Alex Kleinman was recovering, and then April Ross had to partner up with someone else, and then her partner got hurt, and they had to withdraw from the tournament. So I was very sad. The Maestrini girls defeated Zana Muno and Kelly Kolinsky in the semifinals, while Alex Kleinman and April Ross defeated Kristen Noose and Taryn Cloth in the semifinals. Speaking of Cloth and Noose, both of those players won the Atlanta, Georgia Open the Atlanta Open, as those were the only 2 pairs that won an event outside of April Ross and Alex Kleinman. But for the most part, it was just the A team just dominating as they were, and I was actually quite impressed that Noose and Cloth made it, or Cloth, not Cloth, Cloth. Cloth and Noose made it all the way to the semifinals. They're still a young pair, and they're still growing and trying to improve, but they're getting better. Like, soon they'll probably be amongst some of the top pairs in the AVP. Unfortunately, this time, this was not really their tournament, as they had to face a lot of stiff competition, but they're getting better. And as long as they stay the course, maybe they can win some AVP events next year. And the fact that they were even able to defeat Sarah Sponsel and Kelly Clace is still phenomenal. Yes, they weren't able to defeat them the second time in the Manhattan Beach Open, but they are still a pair that's on the rise. So I can't wait to see what happens with Kristen and Taryn. So we'll see what happens with them. And for now, it's still April Ross and Alex Kleinman on top of the world. And I don't know who else is going to stop them. Maybe Kelly Clace and Sarah Sponsel, but I don't even know what happened to them. I was more surprised that they lost to. What happened to them was, for those wondering what happened with Clace and Sponsel, they lost to Cloth and Noose in the elimination match, which was the quarterfinal. So I kind of am surprised to see Clace and Sponsel losing the rubber match to Kristen and Taryn, but again, those two, Noose and Cloth, are really good, and I think the future of the AVP is brighter than ever. So until then, though, we have the A team still dominant as always. So good stuff for April Ross and Alex Kleinman. So I'm happy for them. So that is going to do it for the AVP. All in all, I wish I could have covered the AVP more, but unfortunately it kind of overlapped with the NCAA women's volleyball season starting. It's not their fault, but... And then they also had to deal with the Olympics as well, so it was kind of everything crammed into one little summer. So I think they won't have too many problems next summer, considering the Olympics won't be happening until 2024 when everyone goes to Paris, France and whatnot. So we'll see what happens. But I'm excited for the AVP going forward, and I think there are a lot of great newcomers as well. It's not just Kloth and Noose. It's other pairs like Brandy Wilkerson and Sarah Hughes are still on the rise, even though they're a little bit older. And then also the Maestrini girls making it all the way to the finals is impressive stuff. So the AVP on the women's side is starting to grow, and who knows, maybe someone will be able to challenge April Ross and Alex Kleinman. So until then, we shall have to wait and see, because time will tell. So that's going to do it for the AVP. Speaking of the Olympics, we had the Paralympics happening, and we also had the U.S. women's volleyball sitting team getting the gold medal as they defeated China in 4 sets. They actually lost to China in pool play in straight sets. But just like the U.S. women's national team in the 2020 Olympics, they used that loss as a turning point in motivation and a learning process to try to get back on track, as the U.S. really showed China in the gold medal match. I was very impressed, and although I didn't get to see too much of it, I was very happy to see the U.S. back on top. And the funny thing is that the U.S. won gold medal in women's indoor volleyball, women's beach volleyball, and women's indoor sitting volleyball, or women's sitting volleyball. So just goes to show you that women can do things just as great as men can. So great job to the U.S. women's sitting volleyball team. We really are proud of you for representing our country, and here's my salute to you. Alright, so that's pretty much the quick gist of the U.S. Paralympics. I didn't really get to pay too much attention to that just because NCAA season was a thing. But I do respect sitting volleyball, and I think that sitting volleyball deserves just as much love as indoor volleyball and beach volleyball. So, all in all, I'm very excited and very happy for the sport of volleyball and how it continues to grow. Hint, hint, ESPN. Televise more matches. I digress, though. But speaking of ESPN and televising matches, in not this upcoming Sunday, but the following Sunday, the 19th, Ohio State and Notre Dame will be facing one another. And I imagine I'll be calling that on our sister stations, such as USRN, USRN2, Wellington Sports Radio, or the iSports Radio Mixler account. So, time will tell, though. But let's not look that far ahead. Instead, let's look ahead to Week 3's noteworthy matchup. So, we'll start with tomorrow between Texas State and number 1 Texas. So, for Texas and Texas State, we will be getting the Battle of Texas. Except Texas is miles ahead of Texas State. But for Texas State, I think they could try to give Texas a battle. My only qualm is that Texas State is just not as good as Texas. Let's get that straight. They're still trying to learn and whatnot, but they're going to need a little bit more time in order to take down the big bad teams. Once conference play hits for Texas State, I can see the Bobcats doing well in Sun Belt Conference play. Obviously, their stiff competition is going to be Coastal Carolina, who also is trying to figure things out. But for them, if they want to win the Sun Belt Conference, they're going to need to start getting their team together. They obviously haven't had a full off season, but you could say that for every other team. So we'll see. And then on Wednesday, we have number 3 Creighton traveling down not too far to face number 3 Nebraska traveling down to face number 19 Creighton. Now, Creighton has been the on-the-rise team. They did just defeat Kentucky. However, Kentucky is not the team that it was last year. They don't have Madison Lilly. They don't have Gabby Curry. They don't have Avery Skinner. it's a whole different Kentucky team. So Creighton is going to get the biggest test of their schedule as they'll face pretty much their crosstown rival. So Nebraska is obviously as good as advertised. My thing for Nebraska is that they actually had to go 5 sets with Omaha. Now, Omaha is from the Summit League, and Omaha is not the best team in the NCAA or the Summit League, but I will say that Omaha is vastly underrated, and I don't think anyone's going to be sleeping on Omaha. But for Nebraska, I think this is their opportunity to get back on track and to get back to their dominating ways. But I can assure you it's not going to be easy taking down a tough Creighton team who is coming off of a great sweep over Kentucky, on the road, mind you. So there's that. And then on Thursday, we have number 16 UCLA heading down to San Diego to take on the Toreros of University of San Diego. That's going to be on Thursday. I'm very excited for this matchup. This is kind of like a crosstown rivalry matchup. And San Diego's coming off of that 2-1 weekend where they beat Hawaii and Cal Poly but fell to Utah. So they get another Pac-12 powerhouse in University of UCLA. And I think UCLA is going to be a very tough matchup for them. Like, against ranked opponents, the Toreros have not beaten one. They've lost to Texas, which is understandable, and they also lost to Utah. They did take a set off Utah, but it's still not winning. So, fortunately, they will get back to the Jenny Craig Pavilion to take on their, I wouldn't say their crosstown rival, their city rival, their Southern California rival. Regardless, it's going to be a great matchup between the Toreros and the Bruins. This isn't the last Southern California opponent that USD is going to be playing. They also get to play their crosstown rival, San Diego State, on Saturday, which I'll also be previewing as well. And they'll also get to play USC, Southern California, later on next week, and then they'll also play Long Beach State next week, which I plan to attend. I just need to get things straightened out. So, keep your eyes and ears open for that. But that's on Thursday's matchup. Now, Friday we got a big slate. So, Friday we have number 8 Kentucky heading down to Wisconsin to take on the Badgers of University of Wisconsin. So, this is the matchup, the 2020 NCAA final that never happened. I picked Wisconsin and Kentucky to be in the championship match last year, and unfortunately Wisconsin didn't hold up its end of the bargain. For Kentucky, this is kind of their big test to see if they could bounce back after their loss to Creighton. For Wisconsin, this is kind of their next biggest test, as they've got quite a bit of stiff competition this weekend, as Wisconsin is playing its second top 10 opponent. Like, it's not on the level of Baylor, and I don't know if Baylor's on Kentucky's level, not quite sure. But for Wisconsin, they can't underestimate Kentucky. Yes, Kentucky is down, but they still have quite a bit of talent, like Allie Stumler and Maddie Skinner. So for Wisconsin, they have been receiving great gameplay from Dana Retke and Molly Haggerty. It's just that they just can't let the moment get to them. So we'll see if Wisconsin can pull off the victory, which I'm sure they can. And then also on Friday, we have number 4 Washington heading down to California to take on Pepperdine, number 22 Pepperdine. So this is a fun little matchup, not just because it's a battle of 2 ranked teams, but former set point guest Steve Astor will be facing his former team that he was I don't know what the exact term is, but he was an interim assistant coach for Washington before being a full-on assistant coach for Pepperdine. So that's a little bit of a nice little storyline right there for Pepperdine and Washington. For Washington, I actually put that they were number 4, but they're number 9, so Washington is going to need to prove that they are still for real. Pepperdine kind of struggled last week, like I said. They struggled against San Diego State, and they struggled against UC Santa Barbara. So they really got to make up for it, and they got to prove to everybody that they're still the real deal. I think Pepperdine is still a very good team, And their schedule is going to get only tougher from here on out, especially when West Coast Conference play happens and they have to face the BYUs and the San Diegos. And then also LMU is good as well because you have the PCH Cup. So I think this is going to be a good little test for them. If Pepperdine wins, then so be it. But if they at least play Washington competitively, I think they'll find success despite the loss. So we'll see. And then we have number 11, well, not number 11 anymore, number 17 Baylor taking on number 7 Florida. This is the first of back-to-back matches for Baylor and Florida. So for these two, this is kind of the matchup of which team is going to bounce back. Florida bounced back with the win over Minnesota, but they lost in 4 sets to Stanford. Baylor, on the other hand, went 0-2 in Tennessee last week, losing to Tennessee and losing to Pitt, both in 5 sets. For Baylor, this would be a huge win for them, and this could catapult them back up the AVCA polls. But for Florida, they're going to have to prove that they could take down teams like this. They can't afford another upset loss. Otherwise, it could be detrimental for them. This could also expose Florida, considering they are facing stiff competition, and they're going to need to start proving themselves because the SEC is going to be very tough this year. You look at obviously they have the Kentuckys to deal with, but you also have Tennessee, which is improved. South Carolina, which actually beat Florida last year. Then you have LSU, which they're off to a sluggish start, but I think they're going to get better as they start to progress. And once Kylie DeBerg gets on page with LSU. Because remember, she's a graduate transfer, and she is still trying to adapt to the LSU style. But I think for LSU, they're going to be up there in terms of the SEC. I think they can actually do well in SEC play. But back to Florida, they know that they shouldn't have let one slip away against Stanford. And we'll have to see if they could take down Baylor. This is another big test for them. And one player that Florida does know well is Avery Skinner, who is a very talented player, as she won the NCAA championship with Kentucky last year. So we'll have to see if Baylor can exploit that, or vice versa. So there's that. Then we have the Pac-12 Big Ten crossover with the first match happening between number 13 Minnesota and number 14 Stanford. So like I said, Stanford is coming off of their big victory over Florida, but they lost in Texas in straight sets, as Stanford is going to have, I wouldn't say it's work cut out for them, but Minnesota has a lot to prove now. Minnesota has to get some wins over ranked teams. Now, I know Minnesota is kind of the favorite to win, but I think Stanford pulls off the win. I'm just going to say this right now. I think Stanford beats Minnesota. 1, because Minnesota is struggling, and number 2, Stephanie Samity is a phenomenal player for Minnesota. However, it's just the Stephanie Samity show. In the loss against Florida, Samity had 31 kills, and then the next best player in terms of kills on Minnesota had 6. That just goes to show you how unbalanced Minnesota is and how they're just a one-man show. If Stanford can shut down or at least slow down Stephanie Samity, their players are going to feast. You look at Kendall Kipp, who is still performing well. You also have Natalie Birdie, who's playing great. She's playing a lot better, in my opinion. And then Katie Barrett has stepped up as a leader. And then Cammie Minor, that is a name you want to definitely make note of. Cammie Minor has done a great job at the setter position. She's kind of like a mini Jenna Gray, except she is just as phenomenal. I won't make comparisons, but still. I think Cammie Minor has done a great job at the setter position, and I think she's priming herself to be the Pac-12 Freshman of the Year. And yes, I said the year, not the week. She's obviously going to be getting Pac-12 Freshman of the Week, but I think she can get Freshman of the Year if she plays her cards right. And I'm not just saying Stanford will have success just because Gina G is in the chat room and she's listening. I'm saying that because I think Stanford is back, and I'm very excited to see what Stanford could bring to the table. So there's that. So outside of the Pac-12 Big Ten Challenge, we have number 6 Purdue taking on number 10 Louisville on the road. Gina says for some odd reason I can't hear you. Maybe it's on my end. I hope that's the case, but well, it looks like everything is fine. I'm not muted, so maybe try refreshing, but I digress. Anyway, so we have number 6 Purdue taking on number 10 Louisville. This will be played at Louisville, Kentucky. So Purdue is ranked in its highest position. They're ranked for the they're number 6 in the nation, which is the highest they've ever been ranked. There we go. So Purdue is number 6, and that's the highest they've been ranked in its team's history. But they have a huge test against Louisville. I don't think they got challenged as much as they did the past few weeks, and they haven't received that big challenge. But I will also say this. I think Purdue is going to get a big test against Louisville. This will also prove if Louisville is the real deal or not. So, and Purdue kind of needs this just because Big Ten play is coming up, and same can be said for Louisville. The ACC, as I mentioned in the first segment of the show, is really improved. So we'll have to see what happens with Louisville and Purdue going forward. And then also on Friday we have number 12 BYU taking on number 4 Pitt in the Panther tournament. So for Pitt, they are number 4, which is one of the highest rankings they've had in a while. For BYU, they get their first true test. They actually had to go 5 with Weber State, but if they could pull off the win against Pitt, then this will be a huge win for them. And I'm actually just going to skim through this just because I actually have something I have to attend to in a little bit, so I kind of have to end this a little early. So we have number 18 Penn State at number 11 Oregon, which is another Big Ten Pac-12 matchup, and that's going to be a fun little matchup. Then in terms of unranked matches that are noteworthy, we have LSU versus Rice. This is the matchup of which team can get a big victory over one another, because LSU needs a big win and Rice needs a big win after the brutal schedule they've had to play. And then we also have Indiana at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech looking to get back on track after they lost to UCLA, while Indiana trying to pull off that big victory. So we'll see what happens with the Hoosiers and the Yellow Jackets. Then on Saturday we have number 8 Kentucky at Marquette. Kentucky is facing a very talented Marquette team. I would not be surprised if Marquette gave them a challenge just as much as Creighton gave them a challenge. So this is also a big test for Kentucky because this will be the second of a back-to-back. So, okay, Gina says she fixed it. Great. So back to Kentucky and Marquette. I think Marquette could give Kentucky a challenge, but it still remains to be seen. So then we also have number 20 Utah at number 3 Nebraska. It's another big test for Utah. They did well against San Diego, but that's San Diego. Nebraska is a whole different animal, so for Nebraska, this will be their second big matchup of the week, as they will have played Creighton, and I think the schedule is also going to be picking up for Nebraska. Nebraska loves a great tough schedule, so we'll see if Nebraska can take down the Utes of Utah. Then we have number 11 Baylor at number 7 Florida. That's part 2 of Florida and Baylor. Then we also have number 13 Minnesota taking on number 11 Oregon in the second day of the Pac-12 Big Ten Challenge. It's going to be a fun little matchup because Oregon is starting to play some stiffer competition, while Minnesota continues to play its stiff competition. Then we have number 18 Penn State taking on number 14 Stanford. This is a nice little mini rivalry between the East versus the West. Like I said, I think Stanford has what it takes to knock off Penn State, but I don't think Penn State is to be underestimated, just because Penn State, they're looking to rebound after. Well, they have rebounded quite nicely. They lost their first game to Georgia Tech in the first weekend of the season, and then they haven't lost ever since. So we'll have to see if Penn State can keep it going. And then we have number 25 San Diego versus San Diego State. The last time these two teams met, the San Diego State actually won that matchup. So for the Toreros, this is kind of a grudge match. This is a matchup they're not going to want. I think that rivalry is still fresh in their minds, as opposed to the Hawaii match. So then we have Notre Dame at number 1 Texas. I think this is an underrated matchup just because Notre Dame is not doing so well. They are facing this is going to start some stiff competition for them because the following week, they play, Ohio State twice in the same week. So if Notre Dame wants to get back on track or they want to prove to everybody that they do belong in the top 25, they're going to need to start playing their opponents tougher because losing to teams like Bowling Green isn't going to do it for them. So then we have number 2 Wisconsin at Marquette. So for Marquette and Wisconsin, this is a tough little outing for Marquette. I think they're going to have a little bit more trouble against Wisconsin than they did against Kentucky, or than they will against Kentucky. So for Marquette, if they could play their game and attempt to try to slow down Dana Retke and the other middle blockers of Wisconsin, I think Marquette could give them a challenge, but I see Wisconsin winning that one with ease. So then on Sunday, to wrap up the week, we have number 20 Stanford at number... Wait, I don't think this is right. I think I messed up on Sunday. I accidentally messed up on Sunday, and I forgot to write down the actual matches. Oops. Actually, Notre Dame and Texas and Wisconsin and Marquette play on Sunday. So that is my bad. And that is actually that when it comes to all the noteworthy matchups. So Stanford and Texas already played, and I accidentally left Stanford, Texas, and Minnesota, Florida, and the other matchups from this last week in this week. So that's going to do it for this week's matchups to watch for this week, and that's going to do it for this show of Set Point. So without any further delay, it is time for me to drop that beat, as I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you all very much for tuning in to Set Point this week. I really appreciate you all. Sorry if I had to basically speed through the rest, but things happen. If you are listening live, I appreciate you. If you're listening on the playback, I appreciate you. If you're listening in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. If you are listening at all, I really, 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 really appreciate you. I'll be back this Friday at 1 p.m. for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. And definitely do keep an eye on the Set Point Twitter account. Definitely do check out all the highlights I caught of the UCLA-Georgia Tech matchup. I really do appreciate you all for your support. For everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves a great rest of the evening. Have yourselves a great week. Thank you to Gina G for popping in the chat room and staying with me for the latter part of the show. She says, another great show and amazing as always. I appreciate you, Gina. And great job today on repping the NorCal Sports. And also, big shout out to Larry B and Marcus O'Scrape for popping in the chat room. So, y'all have yourselves a great rest of the week. And I'll see you Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Peace!